They say a blackmailer never prospers. Mr. Boddy would have laughed at that. He was not sentimental when it came to making money. He knew all about the 7 deadly sins, especially greed. And being rich himself, he knew how to dangle temptation in front of people and how to put the pressure on when temptation didn't work. And when something big came up, when Mr. Boddy really needed money, then he was ruthless. But Mr. Boddy made one mistake. He didn't see the greed in himself, and that made him vulnerable.
A light bulb. Fingerprints, Mr. Green. Rope on table.
I don't know what's wrong with you men these days. You can't do anything for yourselves, can you?
But you know where Boddy keeps his things in the study.
And if I got them for you, you still wouldn't know what to do about it, would you?
All I want you to do is see if you can find the bank drafts or the checks he's going to be handing over on Monday.
And if I can't find them? I gave him cash. But you don't care what happens to my money, do you? Well, all I can say is that you deserve everything that's coming to you for the way you've handled your godson's affairs, so you can do your own damn dirty work.
Slight, I could go to prison for this.
There you are, then. That'll open Boddy's desk for you.
Have I seen a wrench? No, I have not seen a wrench, although it hadn't crossed my mind that I should be looking for one. I would suggest that you ask Mrs. White. She might be able to help you. I can't. Yes, I saw the rope. It was in the kitchen when I was talking to Mrs. White. I don't know what possessed me, but I went back for it and tied it across the top of the stairs. I'd taken away the light bulb, so it was hard to see. I don't really think I wanted to kill Boddy. I just wanted to frighten the old boy. It wasn't the cleverest of moves, was it? I suppose you know that Mr. Boddy stood to make a lot of money out of this brewery deal. He was on commission. He got a percentage of all the money which was invested. He knew the others would lose their money, but it was far too good an opportunity for him to miss. Unfortunately, I was being tarred with the same brush, although there was no money in it for me. Mrs. Peacock, however, didn't quite see it that way. She threatened me with Boddy's gun. She even took a couple of shots at me. And then she muttered something under her breath about Boddy. Perhaps you should find out what she did with the gun after she left me. I've nothing to add at present.
Lead pipe hidden down back of sofa. Fingerprints, Mrs. White. Traces of blood. Blood unidentifiable. A telegram, addressed to Colonel Mustard, hidden in a book. The telegram warns that Boulder's Brewery is in serious financial difficulties and an unacceptable risk. Fingerprints, Miss Scarlett, and Mr. Boddy.
I can't tell you any more. Boddy's going ahead, no matter what happens, no matter who gets hurt.
For goodness sake, Michael, this isn't you skulking about like a common criminal. Tell me what you know.
Pull out of the brewery deal now. I know it's going to fail, and so does Boddy.
But he already has my banker's draft. Are you mixed up with him in this? Is that how you know?
No, I'm not. But I've been warned, and I'm waiting for confirmation. Please, don't ask me anymore.
He's blackmailing you, isn't he? That's why you can't talk.
If Boddy goes ahead with the investment, you will lose your money. All of it. But I have far, far more to lose, believe me.
A small key found in drawer. Fingerprints Mrs. White. Candlestick, recently polished. A smashed plate. A safe in the sideboard. Checks and drafts in the safe, including those from Professor Plum and Mrs. Peacock.
Thank you for seeing me. I'll be brief.
I have nothing to say to you.
I can assure you the feeling is mutual. However, other people are involved.
They certainly are.
Please, listen to me. Unless Boddy can be persuaded to pull out of this investment, I, amongst others, will lose everything. I expect no sympathy upon my own.
Could you please get to the point?
Colonel Mustard is involved with Boddy in this. I don't know how nor why, but I want him freed from Boddy's clutches. You must go to your uncle and persuade him to pull out.
Why should I want to help the Colonel, Mrs. Peacock?
There is certain information that's not available to you, Miss Scarlett.
About me and Michael. You know nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing.
No, I haven't seen any gun. You mean Boddy's gun? His revolver? No, I haven't seen it since last weekend. We got in a spot of target practice, and I haven't seen it since then, though. No reason to. No, afraid not. Absolutely no recollection of a candlestick at all. Can't help you. Sorry. I believe I might have seen some such thing in the hall cupboard last weekend. I was looking for a screwdriver. Well, can't be certain that's what it was, but it did look like a piece of pipe. Haven't seen it since, though. Well, there was this commotion upstairs, and when I went to see what the matter was, Mrs. White showed me the rope tied across the top of the stairs. Well, deuced dangerous it was. Could easily have killed her. I went down and got a knife from Miss Scarlett, and then I cut the rope for Mrs. White, and she took it away. Wrench? No, I haven't seen one. Well, not today, anyway. I do remember seeing one not so long ago. Oh, no, I think it was last weekend. No, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Has anybody told you yet about the rope that was tied over the stairs? Nearly killed Mrs. White, you know. If I were a gambling man, I would suggest that it had probably been put there for Mr. Boddy. Anyway, Mrs. White can probably tell you more. She got me to cut it down for her. You may know that I have got myself into a spot of bother with the ladies. I've had an understanding with Mrs. Peacock for some time, but I'm ashamed to say that I couldn't resist Miss Scarlett's charms. It was all getting too much for me, and I decided the time had come to give up one of them. It had to be Miss Scarlett. I tried to tell her, but she'd have none of it. I'm sorry. That's about it for the present, I'm afraid.
There is nothing of interest here. There is nothing of interest here. Candlestick. Damaged. Fingerprints, Mrs. Peacock, Miss Scarlett, and Mrs. White.
I know you've got a lot invested with Boddy in this brewery business, right?
It's all that again, is it?
Look, there isn't the time to explain this to you. You've got to get that money back from Boddy. He signs for the shares on Monday. Then it'll be too late.
But you told us to go in for this. You said that Mr. Boddy practically guaranteed us a big return on the shares.
Yes, I know. But Mrs. White, that brewery's almost bankrupt. Boddy's not even investing in it himself. All he's doing is collecting a fat commission for the money he brings in. He can't lose.
Did you know the brewery was in trouble when you told us?
Yes, I did. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm sorry.
Two bullet holes in the wall. The rug has been moved. Beneath the rug, tests show traces of Mr. Boddy's blood. Wrench. Fingerprints Professor Plum and Mrs. White.
I want an explanation from you now. I stand to lose just about everything if this Brewery deal falls apart. Did you know it was going to fail when you advised me?
Forget the injured, innocent routine. You're as greedy as the rest of them. And now you're squealing like a stuck pig because you think you're going to lose your precious investment.
You're in this with Boddy, aren't you?
It's a bit late to start asking questions now, isn't it, Mrs. Peacock?
I trust you.
Some people only learn the hard way.
And that was meant for Boddy.
Everybody seemed to know that there was something badly wrong with the brewery deal.
but I managed to get the proof. I saw Uncle Boddy take delivery of a telegram, but it was addressed to Colonel Mustard. Uncle Boddy took the telegram to the conservatory and he locked it in a cupboard there. I decided that I had to get the telegram back, so I broke into the cupboard. The telegram was dynamite. I wanted to warn the Colonel, but when we met in the conservatory, he was talking about ending our relationship. So I hid the telegram in a book in the cabinet in the lounge until the time seemed right to use it. You need to understand what sort of man Uncle Boddy was. He never hesitated to use any information he had to blackmail or threaten somebody. I came through one of the secret passages earlier and found myself at the entrance to the study. I heard shouting. It seems that Colonel Mustard knew that Boulder's brewery was going to fail, and he was threatening to tell everybody. As usual, Uncle Boddy found a way of silencing the Colonel, but you should ask him about that. He even managed to provoke Professor Plum to a fury. I heard him shouting in the billiard room, and then there was a loud crash, and he stormed out carrying a billiard cue. He went into the conservatory, and I saw him wiping something wet from the cue. What on earth was that about? I'm afraid I can't think of anything else to tell you at the moment.
Look, I don't know what was going on, but I found Mr. Boddy's revolver on the piano in the ballroom. I couldn't leave it there. It might have had live bullets in it, so I took it to the study and left it there until I could find Mr. Boddy. Yes, I found one of the candlesticks in my kitchen. It looked as though someone had thrown it out of the window. I was hopping mad. So I put it to one side until I found out who the guilty party was. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about the pipe. You see, when I went into the library, I had to have something to break open the bookcase door. I knew there was a piece of lead pipe in the hall cupboard, and I used that to do the job. When I'd finished in the library, I was in a bit of a panic. I thought I'd heard someone coming, so I rushed into the lounge and stuffed the pipe down the back of the sofa. I keep some rope in the kitchen, just in case, you know. When Mr. Green came in, he was fiddling about with it. Nerves, I think. But it nearly did for me later. Somebody had tied it across the stairs. It was probably meant for Boddy. I asked the Colonel to cut it down for me, and I left it on the hall table. I don't know where it's gone now. Somebody must have moved it. Yes, I know there's one in the hall cupboard. I know because I gave it to Professor Plum when I was out there with him. I was teasing him about what he could do with it. Mind you, I left him with it, so I don't know what happened to it after that. You may have heard by now that somebody tried to kill me. Well, perhaps it wasn't me they were trying to kill, but it was me that nearly had an accident. Somebody tied a rope across the stairs and removed the hall light bulb. If I hadn't been running my duster down the banister, I would never have noticed that rope. I got Colonel Mustard to cut it down for me. I did see something odd going on in the study earlier when I went past, though. It was very dark, but there was definitely somebody standing by Mr. Boddy's desk. I heard the ping of a telephone, so I thought I'd better make myself scarce. As I went down the corridor, I looked back, and who should I see coming out of the study but Mrs. Peacock? I have no idea what she was up to. What I don't understand about all of this is why Mr. Green advised us all to invest in Boulder's Brewery. He has admitted to me that he knew all along that it was going to fail. Why did he do that? I've still not found out. I gave all my savings in cash to Mr. Boddy. Professor Plum had a scheme for getting it back. But after we talked for some time, it became clear he was only interested in getting back his money. He had no concern about mine whatsoever. Perhaps he knows something more about this. I've nothing to add at present.
A drawer forced. Drawer empty. No fingerprints. A stain. Tests show it to be water. A billiard cue. Fingerprints Professor Plum. Tests show dry beer on cue.
I'm sorry. None of this would have happened if I hadn't behaved like a complete fool.
How can you be so arrogant? Don't you think I have any say in my own affairs? That I might actually have decided to get involved with you?
It was all a mistake. We can't go on like this.
So you're going to forget all about us and creep back to Mrs. Peacock just because she's in some trouble over Uncle Boddy's investment?
Mrs. Peacock is an entirely innocent party.
Oh, she wouldn't know the meaning of the word. She's forced you into this.
It's not her, I tell you.
Well, then it's got to be Uncle Boddy. Tell me. I said I'd do anything for you, even if you are spineless. I won't let Uncle Boddy destroy you. You see, I know more about this than you think.
A tray with broken glass and liquid. Liquid identified as beer. There is nothing of interest here.
Try some of this Boulder's, Plum. It's great.
Boddy, will you please listen to me? This is serious.
Investing other people's money certainly is serious.
I only bought those shares because you promised a quick return on the investment. You knew it wasn't for me. I was trying to build up the trust money for my godson. It's inconceivable he should lose it.
I don't know about inconceivable, but it certainly is illegal.
You could go to jail for that. I don't care what you've done or what you haven't done. I don't care if the brewery goes broke or not. But if anything happens to my godson's money, I'm coming straight back to you, Boddy. You will be responsible.
Caveat emptor, Plum. Let the buyer beware.
No, Boddy. You beware.
Fingerprints, Mr. Boddy. A hollowed-out book on the floor. Book empty. Bloodstains on book. Tests show blood to be Mrs. White's. Mr. Boddy's pen on the floor, beside an open book. Knife hidden amongst the books. Blade and handle wiped clean. A duster hidden. Shows traces of blood and furniture polish. Tests show blood to be Mr. Boddy's. Glass smashed. A book missing.
Boddy.
It's Jack. We're running out of time.
Yes. They all know there's something wrong. I managed to intercept a telegram for Colonel Mustard today.
I can hold back the brewery results until Monday. Can you shore up your end?
Certainly. But if anything goes wrong, you won't see a penny of this. Do you understand me?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I've seen Boddy's knife, but not this weekend. It looks like the kind of thing you would disembowel a dinosaur with. Horrible. Exactly the sort of knife you would expect Boddy to own.
I am sure that Mrs. White will tell you this, if she hasn't done so already. I tried to persuade her to break into Boddy's desk in the study. I thought that might be where he had put the check that I'd given him. My investment in Boulder's Brewery. I wanted that money back and thought Mrs. White might get it for me. She treated me with the contempt that I deserved. But I do think you might find some benefit in talking to the Colonel. I don't tend to notice much about personal relationships, but nobody could have missed the Colonel. He was always either mooning around Miss Scarlett or gazing anxiously at Mrs. Peacock. I have no idea what was going on, but he certainly wasn't acting like any sort of war hero. I don't know whether anybody heard me earlier, but I was infuriated by Boddy's attitude when I asked him for my money back. I knew that my check was still on the premises, and I could see no reason why Boddy should refuse to give it back to me. But he laughed at me, and at that point, I became violent. I smashed my billiard cue into the beer bottles and stormed out of the room. I don't want to implicate anybody else in all of this, but I did see Mr. Green behaving in a peculiar manner. I watched him creeping up the stairs, trying to be as quiet as he could. He was carrying a coil of rope with him. In fact, he was trying to conceal it. I suppose I should have stopped him, but I thought that perhaps he had more guts than I did.
I'm afraid I can't think of anything else to tell you at the moment.
Fingerprints Mrs. Peacock and Mr. Boddy. A locked drawer. It contains money. Fingerprints Mrs. White and Mr. Boddy.
I have my contacts, and they have warned me that Boulder's Brewery is on the slide. If you don't tell the others, then I shall be forced to.
Faith, Colonel. An investment requires faith. It may yet prove to be outstanding.
Well, not outstanding enough for you to put your money into it, eh, Boddy?
Confidence is critical at this stage, Colonel. Let me assure you, I will do anything necessary in order to sustain it. If you do anything to destroy that confidence, I shall be forced to go to your Mrs. Peacock and inform her of a rather shabby liaison you're having with another lady in this house.
You dare, Boddy!
Do I make myself clear, Colonel?
When I heard Boddy confirming that Boulder's was about to collapse, I saw his knife lying on the desk. I picked it up with every intention of using it, but I decided I needed a more effective weapon. I left the knife in the study. You may already be aware of this, but Mr. Boddy knew that Boulder's Brewery was going to collapse. There were a lot of rumors flying around, but I have no doubt whatsoever that Boddy knew exactly what was happening. You see, I overheard a telephone conversation which confirmed that he had known all about the brewery's finances for some time. I was furious. I even thought of using Boddy's own knife on him, but I rejected the idea. Miss Scarlett was up to something, though. I don't know how much she knew of her uncle's affairs, but at one point I saw her in the lounge, and she seemed to be hiding a piece of paper in a book. She pushed the book into the ornamental cabinet. I have no idea what was on the paper. I think I should tell you that I may have frightened Mr. Green. I had a dreadful row with him, and he more or less admitted that he knew about the brewery's finances before we invested. He taunted me with it. Well, I finally snapped. I actually fired 2 shots at him. Mercifully, I didn't hit him. It seems that the Colonel knew something as well, although he wouldn't tell me how or what he knew. We met in the lounge, and he was trying to tell me, but something made him hold back. Oh, I have no idea what it was. I've nothing to add at present.
I'm afraid I can't think of anything else to tell you at the moment.
I saw Colonel Mustard with it. You see, I'd almost gone flying over the rope that somebody tied across the top of the stairs, and I think the Colonel must have heard me cursing. He came running up and said that he was going to get a knife. He was back in a minute with it, and he cut the rope away. I didn't think to ask where he got it from so quickly. I'm sorry. That's about it for the present, I'm afraid.
Yes, I saw Mustard with the knife, but there wasn't anything odd about it. I mean, it wasn't dripping blood or anything. He was just marching along the corridor with it. I had had enough of Boddy and his games. The truth is, I lost my head completely. I got hold of some rope from the kitchen and tied it across the top of the stairs. I removed the bulb from the landing light and hid it in the hall cupboard. I knew that Boddy was always first down for dinner. But of course, it was Mrs. White who came down the stairs, and she could have been killed. That finished me. I decided to wait and see what would happen next. I thought Professor Plum might do something. I knew that he was in serious trouble himself, perhaps in danger of going to jail. He was too old for that, and I really thought that he might see Boddy off for us. I'd check on him if I were you. Look, I'd be grateful if this didn't go any further. Boddy found out that I had been convicted of embezzlement, and he threatened to spill the beans if I didn't persuade the others to invest in Boulders. In other words, he was blackmailing me. He must have had some of the other guests under pressure too. I saw the Colonel striding down the corridor with a huge, ugly knife in his hand. But don't ask me what he was up to. I can prove my innocence. I had been in the dining room after dinner with Professor Plum and Mrs. White. They were both moaning, and it was irritating me, so I left and went down to the lounge for some peace and quiet. Mrs. Peacock followed me in, and I think we would have had words, but then Miss Scarlett came in to join us. We remained there in stony silence until we heard about Boddy's death. That's it, I'm afraid. I don't know anything else.
I'm afraid I can't think of anything else to tell you at the moment.
You think the murder took place in the ballroom? Which? And this is your accusation? You think the murderer was Mrs. White, in the ballroom, with the knife?
Congratulations, you've got it all right. Let's go back and have a look at it step by step and see how it happened.
Mrs. White knew she was a fool for letting Mr. Boddy invest her life savings in something she knew nothing about, and that was before she heard that the brewery was going to fail. She didn't know who she wanted to kill first, Mr. Green for encouraging her to invest her money, or Mr. Boddy for feathering his own nest. When Mrs. Peacock left her in the billiard room, she sat down to think. She'd already tried to find her money, but to no avail. Then she saw the knife lying on a table where Colonel Mustard had left it. She had no intention of using it, but on her way back to the kitchen, she saw Mr. Boddy go into the ballroom. That's when she remembered the knife. She went back to the billiard room to collect it and followed Mr. Boddy into the ballroom, but he ignored her. He turned his back on her, and that was Mr. Boddy's last mistake. She pulled the rug over the blood and then she rushed back to the kitchen. But there was someone there, and this was no time for company. She hurried back to the library. Mrs. White knew that she had to get rid of the evidence, so she wiped the knife clean with the duster that she'd been using on her candlesticks. She hid the knife on the bookshelf, and then hid the duster behind a cushion.
And there you have it. That's how Mr. Boddy met his fate. Why not come back again and see if you can solve the next murder at Arlington Hall? Hmm?